guess I begin by saying, wow. We were not expecting this. So my name is Guy Payne, and I'm the Executive Director of SEON. And along with all professionals from the Sustainable Energy Outreach Network of SEON, we welcome you. This is fantastic, and this is great. We'd like to think that we're touching a nerve, and this is our kickoff. What tonight is going to be is, it pretty much replicates one of the ways in which we see ourselves moving forward. And that is, we are a networking group. We're not a project management group where we will target a particular area in which we're going to focus our energies. What we are is an opportunity to bring people together, to form relationships, and to share. And be a catalyst for what you folks want to bring forward. So one of the ways in which we're going to do this tonight is going to be similar to ongoing open forums that we're going to have. There'll be a chance for people to get together in the beginning, network plus like we're doing today. There'll be a presentation, maybe beginning once every 2 months or once a month, to bring people, introduce people to either new ideas, what's going on in the state, new products, accomplishments of our area of businesses. It could be any number of those. And we'll be looking to a programming committee to put that on. So it'll at least be once a month. And it'll only go for an hour and a half. And then after the presentation, more Q&A, that will be it. We'll probably start off in the afternoon. But tonight is going to replicate that. A little bit of networking in the beginning. Part of it is now explaining what is SEON, where did we begin. And then Alex Wilson will be presenting on the topic. And we do have books for sale here, and all the proceeds of the sale of the book will go to SEON. So we want to thank BuildingGreen for doing that. And then we'll wrap up. And then by 7:30, maybe by 7:30, given the crowds, we'll finish. And that's the way the open forums are going to go in the future. So look to us once a month or once every two months for gatherings such as this. We don't know where yet. Now we have to find out a larger spot. Maybe here. But for now, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Gary Goodman, who is the owner, founder of Friends of the Sun in Brattleboro, to give an explanation as to how did all this start. So, Darren, whether you need this or not, I don't know.
Well, maybe. We'll see. So I have to correct Guy. I'm not the founder of Friends of the Sun. It was started by a bunch of people just before I came to town. And they were people that were graduates in Marlboro, and originally started as a solar store. We now do primarily biomass, but a bunch of different things, and we've probably done just about everything you can imagine selling in big lots and small places. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a little background about what an energy cluster is, and where this idea came from, and where we as the founding members of SEON have seen it kind of going. So, at this point in time, we have an office. We call it the world headquarters of SEON. It's out in the office space above my store out on Putty Road. So, and Guy is our underpaid executive director, vastly underpaid. So the people that eventually became the founding members of SEON started meeting early this year. So we've been meeting for several months, and I think we had two questions. One was, should we try to start an energy cluster? And then the second one was, what is an energy cluster? And so and then the other thing is that probably one of our first decisions was to stop referring to it as an energy cluster, because the other word that usually goes with cluster it sort of leads to bad outcomes. Anyway, the first time I had ever heard about an energy cluster, it was the 2010 Northeast Biomass Heating Expo in Manchester, New Hampshire. And the keynote speaker was Christian Egger, who was a dynamo from Upper Austria. She is the Deputy Secretary of the Energy Office, I guess, of the state of Upper Austria. And she's also the Director of the Energy Cluster. And the Energy Cluster there basically exists to be an organization of green businesses, mostly, but other organizations, that will further the goals of the state of Upper Austria as far as energy goes. And I think the first year that I heard about this, it was really exciting because, you know, in this world we get a lot of bad news. We get a lot of news about things that aren't working, things that are proceeding at too slow a pace, and so forth. And for me, this was a really exciting thing. Their goal is to basically to convert all their space heating and all their electrical to alternative sources, solar, hydro, wind, and biomass by the year 2030. And as of a few years ago, they were about a third of the way there. And it's really remarkable. And what has happened with the energy cluster there, and you know, it's quite different from the country. The state is quite different from our state. And the scale of things is quite different. But they have 1.4 million people there, so it's quite a bit bigger than Vermont. It's a very industrialized area. And so the energy cluster there is made up of about 40% manufacturing entities. You know, that wouldn't happen here. We are more service-oriented, really. But what's happened over the years is that a pretty good number of the, for instance, the best pellet equipment, pellet burning boilers, are located there. The manufacturing is located in Upper Austria from really not that in the last 20 years. So it's quite a, and that's just one thing. There's solar manufacturers there, all kinds of equipment that people use in alternative energy systems are located there. So the way they're set up in Austria is they have clusters for all different industries, and the green energy cluster is one of, I think, eight or nine different clusters. So anyway, that's an energy cluster. We realized pretty early on that, especially when we couldn't understand the names of the companies, as they were all in Austrian, that we had better find a model that was a little closer in scale to what we would be, and maybe a little, culturally, a little more similar. So we found an organization called Switch in Kingston, Ontario, and Guy and Jonathan Morse went to their annual meeting this year. That is a smaller organization in a smaller place and not too far away from us. And we've really borrowed a lot of their ideas, some of their goals, even some of their organizational statements and so forth, with their permission. And they have been a really good model for us. So let me just quickly give you remember when I didn't have to do this.
At least you can remember.
I can only remember it because I said it yesterday. So this is a quote from their written material. Their membership includes sustainable energy suppliers and consultants, businesses and organizations using sustainable energy, academic institutions, public organizations, business professionals, and students and interested community members. So it's a really broad base of support and membership, and I think that a lot of their support comes from government funding, which we're not likely to get as much of as they do. So I think we really need to have a broad base of support. So I'm glad everybody's here. I hope you can all find yourselves in one of those groups. So anyway, that's basically what an energy cluster is. We are a sustainable energy outreach network, so we're calling ourselves more of a network than a cluster. But so I guess back to Guy.
All right, great. When Gary and I have been talking along with people from the Charter Group, exploring the idea of networking, what we did first is meet with a number of businesses in the area, because there was a fundamental belief that at the beginning it really needs to be business driven. And so we met with a lot of business owners or key members within the area. And what we found out was, one, we already know that this one, is that the renewable energy efficiency economic sector is not robust yet. And it is not a job-producing engine. We know that. We've trained a lot of people, and for many, there's no place for them to go. But as we met, and we realized that there are governmental policies, there are incentives, there are a number of issues that do present problems, but it's outside of our control. But one of the things that so many of the owners said was that we don't have an infrastructure that connects people with one another, that allows people to share information, that keeps people informed. One of the some of the influential sources of information are up in Burlington or Boston. That's not convenient and of value to a lot of folks, because we can't get there without sacrificing an awful lot of time. And many of the business owners are small, and that's a big chunk of time and money to go away for a day and then come back and not be connected with anybody. And the issue of interdependence and interrelationships is a key element of what we're trying to do here. So we realized that there was a lack of an infrastructure, whether it's communication, whether it's a structural means of getting together like the forums, but it did not exist. Or as one person said, Guy, we need help in connecting the dots. And you can figure out which dots that means. But there are a lot of people doing good work, but they're not connected to one another. So they're all independent and they're all isolated. As well as many folks feel themselves as isolated. I think Gary has mentioned that, and a number of folks that you're there, you're writing proposals, you're trying to get the bids in, but you're doing it by yourself. And so it can be a very solitary and lonely kind of existence. So here's an opportunity where people begin saying, yeah, if we could share ideas, that would be great. If we could support one another, even if they're competitors, which is an interesting idea. As a result of Irene, one of the issues that had been percolating along, but Irene brought it really to our attention, was the lack of an understanding of building science as it pertains to water and vapor management. One of the auditors at SEPCA came up to me and said, Guy, I understand energy efficiency. I don't understand water and vapor management. So we asked Peter Yost of BuildingGreen to design a course, an advanced course in building science. We had probably 22 people attend the very first class. We ran it again. We had 20 some odd people. And then we ran a less tech course, because there's an awful lot of folks, and maybe some of you, like you, don't understand how a house works. Go into the basement and you see, what do all these things mean? What do they do and how are they related? So we also knew then from talking with a lot of the contractors that they want more understanding and a greater in-depth understanding of building science, and it could probably go beyond that to photovoltaic or a lot of other areas as well. We're not just focusing on the construction industry, although that's what brought us some of the quick results that we gave. And then a good friend of mine, Paul Beeble, who was here tonight, was always used the word, why are people motivated to do some of these projects? And he's always used the 3 Ps. I added a 4th. Pays you back. If you do this stuff, it pays you back, gives you peace of mind, it's patriotic, and it protects the environment. That's nut number 4. But the problem is, so many folks are overwhelmed with where do I begin? They're introduced to PV structures, and yet what's really at the base and the core of their concerns is the amount of money that they're spending on fuel. And so they're confused. Things are complicated, financial structures are different, or confusing for them, and so they're not moving forward to the extent that they need to, and it's the consumer that will drive projects. So we're also saying that yes, it's a business-driven group, but what we need to do is focus on how do we assist the consumer. So that was the need. There we go. Okay. So what's the plan? The plan was we needed to start really with the diverse and interrelated businesses as charter members. We wanted a diverse group of folks to really begin helping us define who we are. And again, I keep coming back. They recognize that from diverse, Peter Carvel of Brattleboro Savings and Loan is one in there, because we know financing is going to be a part of it. It's the interdependence, it's the interrelationship, and it's the dynamics that go within those groups that makes it. So we have folks from the construction fields, we have folks from the photovoltaic fields, we have folks from manufacturing, from the retail side. So we, again, are focusing on the interrelationships. We needed to connect with best practice. We don't want to just have it to be some kind of theory. It seems to make sense. So yes, we connected with Upper Austria. We looked, gained from them, as well as we looked to Switch up in Kingston. Yes, then we went ahead, and I'll get into the mission, the goals, and the practices, and that's what the charter group was doing. Develop communication channels. Yes, so we do now have a website called SEON.info. And we thought, wait a minute, .info, that's sort of cool, because that's sort of what we are. We're an information sharing group. I use the word empower for broad-based action. Our goal is to be a catalyst. Our goal is to get people excited, and then as I've often felt, get the hell out of the way. Let the groups go ahead. We do need to generate quick wins. Most folks can get really confused, not confused, but frustrated when you're not seeing a lot of activity. And so we needed to have some quick wins. And so we're doing that. And then build the sustainable structure, which is, right now, it's the second floor of Friends of the Sun, and the website and the charter members. And we need to begin consolidating these gains. How are all these linked? Okay. So the mission is not that different probably from a lot of other organizations. It's how do you establish a network that promotes the vibrancy of this region in terms of renewable energy and energy efficiency. It's very simple, but the way we go about it is what's the different piece with all of this. So the goals? Yes, how do we promote the region as an innovative leader? And there has been a history in this area of innovation. We do want to increase the energy efficiency, safety, health, durability, value of homes, whether it's residential, multifamily, commercial. industrial, municipal. We do want to increase the net metering and other renewable projects. We don't have all the metrics down as to how we're going to measure this right now. That's where we are, just in terms of our goals. Certainly to advance the professional development of the practitioners in the area, as well as the energy literacy, I think, of the consumer, of the public. It's still confusing. What's a kilowatt? What's a kilowatt hour? How do I measure energy usage within the home? Financial. How do I figure out, or how do I understand what is the ROI? So we need to focus on that as well. And then we certainly need to attract and retain the young in this area. And we certainly believe that one of the things that is of value to the younger generation is realizing, wow, there's a lot of information moving around, and I'm connected to that. So the goals, so the services that we're going to do, we're going to provide networking opportunities. I had mentioned once a month or once every 2 months that we're going to have the open forum. We're going to look and develop, some of this is still in process, some databases for people. Sometimes you go into, and a lot of folks want a local, regional expert that they can go to. Sometimes going into the website and learning something from far away is a little bit distancing for a lot of folks. They want the local experts. And so if we can develop those websites, it is good. And some of the websites of the state agencies or public service agencies are difficult to navigate to find out where you are. Jonathan just the other day was trying to say, I'm a 5-star builder, but I can't find where I'm listed. How do I know that? So we need to develop a database that can be of support. Certainly supporting the education and employment, and then promote the ongoing in terms of community meetings. How do we do the ongoing promotion of sustainable energy? So what does that mean by empower for broad-based action? As I said, sometimes it's good to just get out of the way. Jeff Gebhardt of Efficiency Vermont, in charge of residential buildings, mainly new buildings, said we have not been in southeastern Vermont to the extent that we need to be. And a lot of people in southeastern Vermont are unaware of the Vermont Energy Code that became law back in October 1st of 2011. Right? That's in existence, that's state statute. There's an awful lot of folks who had no idea there is an energy code. So what we did, I knew, where's Russ? Russ Chapman, he's around here, so there he is. So it was a matter, so Jeff shared that with me. I knew Russ, I gave Russ a call. Within a day, Leader Home Center supported and hosted a Vermont Energy Code training in which over 40 local contractors and architects attended. I kept asking Russ, I said, what would you like me to do? And Russ is saying, it's like, get out of the way. Got it, we got it covered. You don't need to get involved, we'll do it. And so it's that kind of thing whereby you make the connections and let the group run with it. Energy roundtables. Many of you, I'm not sure how many people here are on town energy committees, but there's an energy roundtable on the 29th up at Springfield Town Hall. Folks from Cullen Maves, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, but said, we need further information on the energy code. And so we made the connection, gave her the contact of Energy of Efficiency Vermont. They're coming down again. 3-hour drive, one way, to come on down to us because they have recognized they have not been serviced. It's not they haven't been servicing, they just haven't been in this area to the extent that they could be. So that is great. Financing of projects. I think that is a huge area that I think needs to be addressed. And if we can link whether they are the lenders, whether there are financial experts to help in that area, that will be critical. We can just say there's a need, and who's going to run with that. We'd love to have internships with educational institutions, whether that's Vermont Tech, whether that's Keene State, or whether that's Greenfield Community College. But if we begin recognizing the interrelatedness and the interdependency of everybody here, stuff happens. Ideas start generating. Partnerships are formed. There's the sharing. There's the collaboration. That's a very different business model for economic development. And we're going to try to capitalize that, and just having you folks here like this is extraordinary. But it takes some real soul searching to say, how much information do I divulge? But we are saying that the whole is bigger than the sum of the parts. And we got to keep focused on that. Future activities, as I said, we're going to have open forums. We'll create databases. We're going to develop a monthly newsletter. That's why we were trying to get some email addresses. So if you haven't filled out the sign-in sheet over there, please do that. Just let us know whether, in fact, you would like to receive monthly newsletters. One of the things that happens is groups get going, and then you don't hear from them within 6 months. That's not okay. It doesn't keep people focused. We'll be on our website. There are forums, there are blogs, there's a calendar. We are on our calendar. We're advertising Vermont Technical College conferences in Boston. We're working on finding money for additional training and workshops. Certainly we need to build our organization so that it is sustainable. And we'll be appearing at community events, maybe even at the winter farmers markets here. Okay, John. Okay, what I'm going to do now, generate quick wins. Jonathan's going to speak. And he's going to speak on a development that happened after Peter's course on advancing green building. So Jonathan, you're going to speak.
So an offshoot of our initial advanced building course, which was focused exclusively on managing moisture in building systems, is a monthly group that we have of professionals getting together, talking about the problems that they see in their own practice. And it's been a wonderful time for us to get together and have a social time with our competitors. It's been wonderful. We have a great time, and we have a lot of people who are really thinking about energy, sustainable construction, and how to best get it out there. And so we have these, from my point of view, all these brainy guys and a few girls coming together, pooling their resources, their intellectual resources. And we just have, we meet for 3 hours. At the end of 3 hours, we say, wait, 3 hours is up. And we can't, it just flies by. So anyway, I don't want to speak for very long about this, but we are going to be doing that. We're going to be doing that kind of thing, and as Guy says, or as I prefer to call him, Guy, because when we went up to Canada, we went through customs, they said, all right, Guy, you can go. And we both looked at each other and said,
oh, I know.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to, as Guy says, it's going to be driven by you. Whatever you want, we're going to do. We can't possibly know what your needs are. And they don't have to be construction related. We're interested in the overall feasibility of sustainable energy production in this region. And it's not just southeast Vermont. There is that state over there, but there's a lot of good people over there. And there's a state down below us with a lot of good people. And we're hoping that we can be that regional organization that brings people together and makes people excited about sustainable energy from one end of the spectrum to the other. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, well, when you're talking about change and managing change and leading change, you need to generate some quick wins. And this has been really an extraordinary piece with the Building Science Group. So just the acknowledgments. In terms of my thanks to everybody. Probably 25% of the people in this room benefited from an economic stimulus package grant that was came to an end on July 1st. It was called BuildingGreen. Vermont Green, excuse me. Excuse me, Vermont Green, yes. And Vermont Green was a statewide initiative, and we took advantage of it in the southeastern part of the state, paid for some of the training of Peter, paid for us going up to, on the road, our trip to Kingston, Ontario, and a number of other ways in which Vermont Green contributed. And Central Vermont Community Action Council was the overriding group in the state. I do want to thank the charter members for staying with us. Some want concrete movement, others were able to hang with us as we were trying to figure out just what this is. They're called charter members, but for me, they're the guiding coalition. That's the group. Certainly BuildingGreen, Peter Yost facilitates the Building Science Learning Circle, is what we call it, which is extraordinary. Alex is making the presentation tonight, so thank you, Alex. Friends of the Sun is letting us use the second floor of their building, so Gary, thank you very much. Sovereign has helped with staff in building the website, Maria Thurell. Sevka is the fiscal agent for us. Ray Masuko, attorney up in Bellows Falls, is our attorney. Tom Gendanoa, is Tom here by any chance? No. No, okay. Oh, you made it, Josh. Did. Josh and Tom created the logo, the SEON logo. Jim Williams' business helped with the duplication of the brochures. Efficiency Vermont has been very helpful, very present in terms of coming on down and assisting us, either co-leading the Building Science Group when Peter is away, coming up with speakers for us. There's going to be an interesting speaker on the 13th. And I would be remiss if I did not thank, even though they're not here, Switch and the region of Upper Austria. Switch has been very generous in terms of us using some of their language and just supporting us tremendously. They were very hospitable when Jonathan and I went up. So those are who I would like to thank, helping us get to this point. Now what I'd like to do is turn it over to Alex Wilson, who will speak on the topic of resilience, the challenge. Thanks.
Thank you, Guy. It's great to be here, and it never ceases to amaze me how many amazing things are going on in Brattleboro and the surrounding region. And I think SEON is a real evidence of that. It's just, I hear a little bit about it from Peter now and then, but it's great to see the turnout and learn a little bit more about what you're all doing. So really cool. Thanks. So I'm going to talk for a few minutes tonight about resilience and resilient design. But I want to start with a little bit of background on how I came to focus on resilience and sort of what it means for me. First, with my background, I got involved with renewable energy back in 1976, back when Friends of the Sun was getting started and stuff was starting to happen after the oil embargoes. That was a long time ago, 32 years ago. First, I was involved in college up in upstate New York, but after graduating, found myself in New Mexico working for a leading regional organization promoting passive solar energy. Sort of the hotbed of the passive solar movement was in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It was an amazing time in the late 70s to be there. So I did that, running workshops, teaching people about solar greenhouses, solar water heaters, trom walls, all kinds of weird things. Did that for about 3 years, and then was hired to run a sister organization based in Brattleboro. That was 1980. It was the New England Solar Energy Association at the time. And I came in, this kid, 25 years old. I didn't really know anything about running an organization, but somehow fooled them into thinking that I could handle it. And was there for 5 years during another really interesting time in the energy world. A month after I started, Reagan was elected, and one of his first actions on being inaugurated was eliminating the regional solar energy centers, part of the Department of Energy that had funded NESE with about 50% of its budget. So that was a little bit hard, but in a way it was a good thing. It forced us to really look at what we were doing as an organization and change that. And we had been focused on solar energy fairly exclusively, but we broadened that focus. And during my time there, we changed the name from New England Solar Energy Association to Northeast Sustainable Energy Association, cleverly keeping that same NESE acronym. But we really oversaw a pretty significant broadening of focus toward energy efficiency, toward quality construction, toward building science, and toward sustainability. After 5 years, I left that, started my own company, which is now BuildingGreen, mainly to really focus on the writing aspect of what I had been doing. I didn't like running things, managing things. I still don't. Unfortunately, I'm no longer president of BuildingGreen. But I do like writing and researching about stuff, learning about all the amazing things going on, new products, new innovations. So I've been doing that for now 25 years, initially with freelance writing, but in 1992 we launched Environmental Building News, which was the first North American publication focused on sustainable building or green building. And did that for, well, we still do that. It's now 22 years. Our company grew over the years. We got involved with green building product information and launched the Green Spec directory, I think first in 1998. I could be off a couple of years there. We got quite involved with the U.S. Green Building Council, helping create the LEED rating system, Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. Both Nadav Moline and I involved with that. Nadav is the president of BuildingGreen now. I served on the board of the U.S. Green Building Council for 5 years, but did a lot of different things. And I tell you all this not to sort of reminisce or boast about interesting stuff I've done, but to say it didn't work. When I thought, when I look back 25 or 30 years ago as to where we're going to be in 25 years, where we're going to be today, it was a way different future I envisioned than where we are today. I imagined that basically, every new house going up by the year 2000, let alone 2012, would be fitted with solar panels, would have passive solar design, would be super insulated. The stuff that Gary's been promoting for decades now, and many of you in this room have been leading the charge with. But we haven't gotten there. We believe that in this room, but the vast majority of new homes going in today and new commercial buildings don't incorporate these strategies. So we're not making rapid enough progress. And if you listen to the climate scientists, we learn that climate change is very real, despite the naysayers, and we're not making anywhere near rapid enough progress to mitigate the carbon dioxide emissions, to mitigate climate change. So, so I think about all these things and try not to get too discouraged about it, but it's gotten me to spend some time thinking about what it would take to motivate people to fundamentally change the way we design and build. And that's where resilient design comes in. And I took a sabbatical for 8 months in 2011, a year and a half ago, and started that with a bicycle trip through the Southwest to kind of get away from things, get away from email, from trying to run a company, and really to get a chance to think about where we're heading as an industry, as a company, as a green building movement, and where we should be going, and reflect on why we're not getting where we need to be fast enough. I thought about this in those brief moments when I wasn't thinking about my knees or my butt on the bike trip, but did get some really good reflective time, which was great. And so what I came to is resilience as a key motivator of change. People in this room, people that subscribe to Environmental Building News, people that most of us interact with get it. We're willing to build energy efficient homes, super insulated homes, incorporate solar design because it's the right thing to do, because it's good for the planet, it's good for our pocketbooks, it's good for the country relative to energy dependence. But we're a small minority, and we need to make much more rapid progress in this. So with resilient design, the motivator can be life safety. Do this because it's going to keep you and your family safe in the event of whatever nature throws at us, or whatever some terrorist somewhere throws at us in terms of power outages or interruptions in heating fuel. So we can do that. We know through building science, through 30 years of energy efficient design, we know how to create buildings that, homes that here in Vermont, in Brattleboro, are never going to drop below 50 degrees. We can do that with very high levels of insulation. Super insulated buildings are 40 walls, are 50 or 60 ceilings, are 20 foundation walls. Triple glazed windows or comparable energy performance with some of the new advanced low-E coatings, R5 unit performance on windows. So we know how to do all that stuff. And we need to move on it more quickly, and creating the understanding among the public that if you build one of these houses or retrofit your existing home to this level of performance, you're going to be safe the next time there's a 3-week power outage that comes along from an ice storm, or flooding that cuts off access for heating fuel, or whatever the problem might be. And there's some pretty scary scenarios out there when you dig into the vulnerabilities we face. So with resilient design, it's partly about building super efficient buildings, very high levels of energy performance that will not only reduce operating costs and help the planet, but also maintain those livable conditions in the event of extended loss of power or heating fuel. But there are other parts of resilient design that are, I believe, equally important. And these are issues like food security. Right now in New England, we get most of our food from pretty far away. All of our grains and corn comes from the Midwest, or most of it does. A lot of our produce comes from California. what happens if there's a extended power outage, an extended drought in the Midwest, as we've seen the last year, but if that goes on for 3 or 4 years, and if there's no snowpack in the Rocky Mountains and the Sierras to irrigate California's cropland, where's Vermont going to get its food? So resilience is also about looking at local food and supporting local agriculture. It's also about ecosystem diversity. I first got involved with resilience issues after Hurricane Katrina, where we did some work connected with the reconstruction going on in the Gulf Coast. And that was a key part of it. A key aspect of rebuilding in a more resilient way in the Gulf Coast is rebuilding the natural protections that existed from storm surges. And that meant, replenishing the mangrove swamps and the natural grasslands that have been removed to make way for development. That's not happening to a significant extent, but that was part of what we termed the New Orleans principles that emerged out of that Hurricane Katrina work. So ecosystem protection and restoration is important. We can even look at economies when it comes to resilience. And what does a resilient economy look like? It's one that's diverse. It's one that has a lot of different businesses, types of businesses that are locally based, locally owned in many cases, so that resources recycle within the community, kind of in a reinforcing effect. So, I came back from my sabbatical, and one of the things I've done is form a new nonprofit organization, the Resilient Design Institute, which is focused on sort of pursuing some of these ideas. And we're not sure how much we're going to try to bite off and make progress on, but really to look at these issues of resilience and promote them as this other route to achieve sustainability or green building practices, the kinds of ends that you're all after with energy efficient home building and remodeling, weatherization and so forth. So, I really look at resilient design as this, it's not new per se, but it's a motivation that people often haven't thought of. And I believe it can ultimately be a stronger motivation than the environmentalist motivation of doing the right thing. Now, not that, the environmental arguments work for everyone in this room, certainly for myself, but I want the Tea Party, I want Rush Limbaugh to say, yes, we need resilient design to keep our families safe. If there's a terrorist event, I don't believe in climate change maybe, but for other problems that may come about, and promote the same ends. And the way you achieve resilience is by building wisely, building highly energy efficient buildings that are going to maintain these livable conditions, as well as all the stuff that FEMA talks about, with homes that are going to resist storms or wildfire in some parts of the country, flooding in many areas, using components that can dry out if they get wet and not grow mold. And as we move toward resilience or toward green building, building science is a absolutely key element of that. Because when we try to create these buildings that are going to maintain these livable conditions, R40 walls, R60 ceilings, R10 under basement slabs, we're opening up a lot of risk of problems if we're not really careful about managing moisture flows. The moisture dynamics of these envelope enclosures are really complicated, as Peter Yost reminds us all the time. So that's an absolutely key element to this. And that's why groups like SEON are so important, so that the widespread confusion that I have and many others have, so there's an opportunity to share that and get answers collectively from others who are facing similar challenges. So I think with that, I'll open it up to Q&A, questions. I'd love to have a dynamic discussion. This is supposed to be a forum, which in my book means back and forth. So I'd love to hear what you all are thinking about and what sort of thoughts these ideas of resilience inspires. So thanks.
Well, I really like your choice of the word resilience, and I really enjoy reading your articles in the paper, but I think we're pretty unique in the fact that your column is running regularly in a regular local paper, and I wondered how you plan to get the idea of resilience out to everyone who's not in the room. Like the people who are least interested right now, how you get those.
Yeah, so the question, how do we get the word out about resilience to that much larger circle that needs to be reached? I don't know, what the answer is to that. Certainly in today's information delivery world, a website is a key resource. ResilientDesign.org is our website, and we hope to keep expanding that and have it serve not only as a vehicle to deliver blogs and articles, but also to house fact sheets, handbooks, freely available information that the contractors can use, remodelers, subcontractors, homeowners. Beyond that, I've been doing a lot of speaking around the country, and so certainly that'll continue. There's a course I'm going to be starting next fall through the Boston Architectural College on resilient design. That'll be an online course. I'm not sure when that starts, but I guess in August or September of 2013. So that's sort of our thoughts about getting the word out, but we'd love other suggestions. Martin Langeveld has been really helpful. Many of you probably know Martin, in helping us get the website up and running and navigate the complexities of social media. I can't say we're doing a good job, but we're struggling along with that. Ralph Maima is here tonight and is involved with RDI, Resilient Design Institute, as well. We're hoping to bring in foundation support to hire Ralph full-time with this, and I've also gone to half-time at BuildingGreen, so I'd like to be earning a salary through RDI as well. So that's another difference. We spun off this nonprofit from BuildingGreen to open up some other avenues of revenue. An idea that Peter has talked about at our company for 8 years, I think. And so we've finally done that, and our hope is that we'll be able to bring in some foundation support. And we've had productive conversations with a number of foundations, so I'm hoping that'll happen. Pete.
Alex, it seems like there's a good fit with the insurance industry with regards to resilient design. What sort of traction have we had with them so far?
Well, I just had an hour-long conference call today with one of your friends, Steve Quarles, and 2 other people with the Institute for Business and Home Safety, IBHS, which is really the primary vehicle the insurance industry uses to research and educate people about vulnerabilities. So they deal with hurricane, tornado, flood, wildfire. A lot of these vulnerabilities our buildings face, and they have a big research facility down in South Carolina. They build entire houses and burn them down and sort of see what materials hold up better than others. And I wanted to meet with them to talk about opportunities for collaboration, and I'm meeting later this week with the president of the Reinsurance Association of America when I'm down in Washington, D.C. on Thursday. And my hope is that the insurance industry can be a key player in this. I mean, they're already doing a lot through IBHS. I didn't come out of that call today with a lot of optimism that we're going to make rapid headroads in that direction. You know, I believe the insurance industry should be all over this and really leading the charge because it's going to save them money. You know, if they don't have to relocate 50,000 people after a Hurricane Sandy or a big ice storm in eastern Canada, they're going to make more money. So they should be very supportive of it. To date, you know, they get it about, you know, the immediate FEMA type disaster resistance, but they don't seem to get it about the need for energy efficiency to maintain those livable conditions. And that was the one area that kind of sparked some interest in my call today. That helped try to make that connection that if we build more energy efficient buildings, we're going to have to relocate people less often after a power outage. You know, if we can build homes that are never going to risk freezing pipes, that's a huge step right in itself. And that's easy to do with the stuff you've all been promoting. It's just a matter of using enough of them in the case of insulation or choosing the right ones in the case of windows. But, you know, that said, you know, I follow the technology developments as actively as anybody, and there's some really cool things going on. You know, one of them, for example, you know, to achieve an R5 window that the whole unit value averages R5, we've needed to go to triple glazing with low-E coatings. Just in the last year, a number of glass manufacturers have come out with low-E coating that can go on the warm side of an insulated glass window. So you can get two low-E coatings in a double pane window. And that allows them to get performance as high as R5 unit performance, you know, for a double glazed window instead of triple. There's cool stuff going on with vacuum glazings, with vacuum insulation, all kinds of interesting stuff. But you know, we can't wait for those things to come along to, you know, use the stuff that's there today. There are great products out there today. I think one of the areas of greatest advancement that's needed is in the building science area. And this is something Peter's talked about a lot. The need to understand how different envelope components work together. And I think we're going to see more manufacturers that offer these whole systems instead of just components. Systems that are designed to work together. And you know, again, as we build more efficient homes, we need to manage the moisture to avoid problems. Yeah.
Question and a comment. Have you talked with Green Mountain Power and I can't remember the other, Central Vermont, as partners in this?
Well, I haven't. It's gotten easier. It's now just Green Mountain Power because they've absorbed Central Vermont Public Service. It's a good idea. I haven't had conversations, but I was at a meeting on resilience. Ralph and I went up to a meeting a month and a half ago sponsored by the Institute for Sustainable Communities on resilience. And the CEO of Green Mountain Power was there. So I think there's some opportunity. Yeah.
Have you had any conversations or thought about manufactured homes? Since I recently bought one and live in one, it seems like, one, they're built under conditions that are much easier to control, and it seems like a ripe area for all the things you've been talking about. Do you have any sense of that? And they make a lot of homes are made that way in this country.
Yeah, so a question about manufactured housing. I think if I have one biggest surprise in terms of where we are today compared to where I thought we would be 25 years ago, it's that we're not building almost all homes as manufactured homes, or at least modular or panelized homes today. There are huge benefits to factory production where you can control the conditions very precisely. So I think there will be more use of these manufactured components, whether in kit form, panelized form, or full modular form.
This is absolutely thrilling, and I really enjoyed your speaking over at the Marlboro site. You mentioned that you had met Michael Reynolds, who is an architect out in New Mexico who's been working on sustainable design. And he has a bill that's been passed out there that I'm trying to get my hands on. I guess it got passed in 2007 to create test sites where the code was lifted so that we could go ahead and experiment and try new things. I'm hopeful that we can bring it here, and this is pretty much a comment. I'm hoping that I can help your work by doing that research and allowing people here to move forward on a legislative basis. But I wanted to make one particular comment about how you said we are minorities and how it's the need is to trigger these thoughts in new people and go out of our comfort zone. And, speaking to the person next to you in line in the grocery store and having something that's intriguing to say, because we do have to grow in a way that won't be really allowed by the corporations. And I want to say kudos to Guy and everybody here. This is so exciting and thrilling to be in this room. And, thank you.
Great, thanks for those comments. Relative to building codes, depending on how you look at it, we're fortunate in Vermont that we can, sort of do what we want. Without Big Brother telling us what. And I'm experimenting with products that in Massachusetts I'd have a lot of trouble experimenting with. So.
I was wondering if you and Guy, or if the RDI and SEON have had conversations about working together and sharing resources, because I sort of see you as two independent organizations, but the power of working together seems like a great opportunity. And has that happened at all? Is there a plan to get together?
Not really. I mean, that's a good idea.
Here we are tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say just along those lines, I was struck by the vision you were describing and seeing that 25 years ago in 2000, and here we are in 2012. And I love everything you said about your vision of resilience. And you look at something like a local food system. And I think in our region, we produce, the Food Hubs did a study on this, it's something like $650 million worth of food. And our region purchases maybe $550 million worth of food. And the amount of intersection of those two is tiny percentage. And I have to think it's similar with renewable energy and energy conservation. The amount that's available and the amount that we actually utilize it is small. And Vermont has a pretty aggressive policy. The comprehensive energy plan that came out talks about some huge percentage, like 80 or 90% renewable energy by 2050. Similar really great goals for energy conservation and weatherization. And I'm just wondering what, how you see, or if, and maybe it's that partnership that Daniel was talking about, but how do you see that social infrastructure being built so that we move those numbers up, can achieve those goals, and achieve the resiliency you're talking about in our population?
Yeah, I'd love to hear from some of the people here in solar businesses about that. We've got incredibly exciting and aggressive goals for renewable energy by 2050, and are we going to be able to get there, and what will it take in the way of changes in decision making or sort of the social side of it. So does Peter Thorell's he here, or Josh, or?
I can speak to it a bit. I'm Josh. I'm from Sovereign Solar, and I mean, I guess two things I would say as far as solar helping to meet the goals of the Vermont Comprehensive Energy Plan of 90% renewables by 2050. One, if you look at the work that they've done, not to undermine solar, ultimately solar is still going to be a relatively small proportion of the energy mix relative to some of the other renewables. Just scale-wise, solar is still going to be a small portion of that overall. But what's exciting, particularly with where we are with photovoltaics right now, is the affordability has come to a point where both in terms of homeowners looking at a payback on their investment and in terms of investors in large capital looking at a return on investment for these projects, that we're now not only seeing more and more people for whom this was seen as a luxury item that they could not afford, being able to make an investment, and capital moving towards larger projects. And I was working at a job site up in Richmond today, and driving along 89 in particular, you can start to see more and more large solar farms. I think we saw 4 just on the drive today. And certainly Sovereign, and I know Integrated, are interested in developing larger solar sites that are going to be able to make a larger contribution and tackle some of this at what we like to call a community scale, particularly looking at providing solar for our schools and our municipalities by partnering with investors to take advantage of the tax credits that are available. And we, right now we know we have the tax incentives that are really helping us get these, say, 10% return on investments that we're seeing for solar. We know we have those through 2016. So we have a window where we have a lot of work to do, and it's a very exciting time. So.
Yes. I'm really concerned to hear how you might comment, but particularly that SEON might partner with some, with putting eggs in another basket here, that you can't all front load building when really there's a value capture and weatherization that we're not talking about. And there are an awful lot of buildings in Brattleboro that have to be addressed in a different way, and I know Paul Cameron is here, and he's handling the Vermont Challenge, the efficiency challenge. And it seems to me there are a lot of resources in the room, and maybe in SEON, that could help us make short-term gains, the quick gains that you were talking about.
Yeah, the existing building market is where the heavy lifting has to happen, and that's where the challenges really lie. In new construction, for not that much more money, you can build to the level of performance I've been describing. In existing homes, it's really hard to do that. It can be done, but it's costly and difficult. And we need to develop, some better components that can reduce the cost of deep energy retrofits. And Eli Gould and I have been sort of brainstorming about strategies to do that for a number of years, and I know a lot of other people are as well. So I think that it can be done, but it's hard. And the other challenge with simple weatherization, which I'm very supportive of weatherization, but the best, I think in doing weatherization, it makes sense to sort of figure out a long-term plan, because you don't want to spend a lot of money weatherizing windows and then decide a year later you need to replace those windows. So it's you need to think about sequence and not doing things that are going to prevent you in a year or two from going further if the cost of energy skyrockets or other conditions argue for really dramatically increasing the energy performance. With simple weatherization, it's relatively easy to get, 20 or 30% savings? But to get 50% savings is really hard with weatherization. And if you want to get that 50% level of savings, what weatherization should you do today when you have just a little bit of budget so that you can then come back in 5 years and do the next phase to get to the 50% savings?
Or do we need to put a good emphasis on increasing the incentives to do that good work?
Incentives, financing. I mean, if you look, you know, the one good thing about the Iraq War was that it showed we can spend a phenomenal amount of money. And, you know, I've done back of the envelope calculations. If you took the money we've spent on the Iraq War, we could do deep energy retrofits on, I think it was half of the houses in the country, you know, at $100,000 a piece. You know, so if the Iraq War was about protecting our access to oil, we could have spent that money far more cost effectively. And maybe someday politicians will be able to comprehend that opportunity out there. Betty.
Is there an activist component of this network? For instance, I have deep concerns about utility wind, deep concerns about natural gas, fracking. Is there a component to this network that deals with these issues? How are you interfacing with the state government and the...
Well, right now we're sort of taking baby steps, sort of bringing this together. As I said, I think our goal is really to be a catalyst to help people get together who have certain common interests. I think it's a little bit, I don't think we're at a point where we're going to take positions on a number of things other than what can we do to encourage the renewable energy and energy efficiency. That's going to be our sort of mantra, and that's where we're going to be. How we move forward, that's still sort of how we'll have the discussions around that.
I think there's also an element of that in bringing people to the table who can maybe address some of those concerns or work through them, and hopefully all come to some kind of an understanding. But certainly, just be a forum for those discussions and be able to, for you to share your concerns and for possible people to pursue that. I think we're on the other side of the coin to be able to address that.
Yeah, when we're trying to bring about change, there's risk in alienating too many people. And I think if SEON is taking a pretty non-political stance, there's probably a lot of wisdom to that. As I said with resilience, I'd really like it to be something that even Republicans support. But excuse me for any Republicans. But as I said, Rush Limbaugh, someone who doesn't believe in climate change may still believe in resilience. And if we can present positive solutions that are win-wins for everybody, we can reach ultimately a broader spectrum of people, I believe.
So for now, the answer is kind of baby steps, no.
Yeah. However, the forum, it's creating forums, creating opportunities, but we'll have those ongoing discussions. But we probably won't be in a position to take you, for us, taking you.
I'm not talking about taking a position, I'm talking about looking into it. That's different than taking a position.
Jonathan, you've never been tried.
Yeah. Well, the only position I'm going to take now is that our goal with SEON is to provide that opportunity, as Guy was saying, that opportunity for all of you to talk about and learn about your concerns that are energy related. And if I don't believe I've ever heard you have a political position before, but if you have a political concern, bring it on. We've got a forum on our website. Let's have a discussion on it. Let's bring someone in to discuss it at our monthly forum.
So
There's no holds barred on what we will be offering.
So just a quick win. Paul and I were talking before the activities tonight about how SEON would be a good vehicle for the homes challenge that's developing. So, Guy, that's a quick win. We've already got that connection started because of the event tonight.
Eli?
Yeah, I was just wondering if maybe one common thread for all people here is that if there was some financial product that really understood what these sort of homes are, with either a longer mortgage or access to some of the capital that I'm seeing lots of clients are doing things on equity for their own reasons about staying in that building for the long term, making it work for them, doing weatherization upgrades, getting off of fossil fuels, and in many cases it's a fairly bold move. It's a little beyond home equity, but they're asking to do a bunch of things that a traditional construction loan wouldn't necessarily do. And I think the insurance industry would follow if there was a financial product that really recognized this is a different type of home. And I think it would take advantage of some really good rates and other things right now. And that's something everybody can, contractors can benefit from, homeowners can benefit from, and probably the idea is that we're all bringing to this would all come under one roof that could be understood on a business basis. If we could really get some change in that.
Great points. Yes.
One sure impediment to your vision being fulfilled from 1975 or whatever you were talking about is oil and coal subsidies from the federal government. Are there enough SENA, or what's it, SENO? S-E-N-O? Is that
SEON.
Are there enough SENOs in the country to band together to have a lobbying organization to get rid of the subsidies for the coal and oil industry?
No.
Are coal and oil dominated?
But there is an organization called Efficiency First, which is all about making sure that homes become more efficient as we develop renewable options for them as well. So a lot of what we're doing tonight is, knitting together. We can learn a lot from Efficiency First and look for a relationship with them as well.
Okay, we're running out of time. I'm told a couple of more questions. So in the back, standing up, yeah.
I know that your specialty is really about architecture and housing and things like that. But I really sort of latched onto the idea of resiliency as you were talking about it with regard to transportation. And I'm wondering if we can really address biofuels and energy storage and things like that, nature that would really make the transportation sector, in Vermont, I don't really care about everyone anywhere else at this point.
Yeah, that's a great comment. And we saw with Hurricane Sandy what happens when the gasoline infrastructure fails.
Yeah, I mean, it really quickly became a police state, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
Transportation is a big issue within SEON that's been discussed. And currently, I don't think we have a committee formed, although I wouldn't be surprised if it's the next step.
I think it's huge, definitely. It's crucial to this state because, it's such a necessary thing.
And it's partly about vehicles, and the sort of the plug-in hybrid future where we might be able to use solar power to charge batteries. And by the way, use those same batteries in our car as our backup generator for the house.
Sure.
Not have a redundant generator sitting there that rarely gets used, or not having a redundant battery bank sitting there that's dedicated to the photovoltaic system. But it's also about redesigning our communities for density, for pedestrian access, for bicycle access, those issues. And for anyone not familiar with it, I'll put in a plug for the West River Trail. Jason Cooper's here, or was here at least, right here. He and I and a bunch of others have been working hard to create this trail along the West River. If you haven't been out there, check it out. Support the organization if you get a chance. But we look at that emerged, that project in Brattleboro, out of the Brattleboro Energy Committee, looking at ways to reduce automobile use. And making bicycle commuting easier is one avenue for that. And so the West River Rail Bed Corridor provides a parallel access along Route 30 across the river in a beautiful spot out to Dummerston. So that's really moving ahead, and thanks a lot to Jason's hard work on it.
Yeah, just wanted to address this gentleman over here who spoke about some kind of investment vehicle, and I think what he was basically referring to could be part of the whole PACE movement. And so I think it's really important for people in Brattleboro to support PACE and get that passed here in town. Because once enough towns in Vermont are using the PACE system and have signed on, then you're going to see investment at the state level flow that way, but also private investment will become easier to get for PACE-related projects.
Great comment. PACE is this property assessed clean energy program that kind of got some early momentum and then got held up when Fannie Mae said that they wouldn't accept it, putting the
PACE lien,
lien ahead of their mortgage lien. Right. But anyway, I think it is a huge opportunity. Last question or comment?
What are your top 3 sort of reasons for the progression not happening in the vision that you had in the beginning, do you think?
I was wildly idealistic. That's one.
That's all.
That's great. The building industry is inherently conservative, and for good reason. But you talk to a lot of builders who say they're doing it the way their grandfather did it, and so it's inherently resistant to change. And partly that's to protect themselves. If I'm trying something new and it doesn't work, I'm going to get the call in the middle of the night that it's too cold or too hot or too wet or too moldy. So there is, that inherent resistance to change. So that's been a factor. And I think also
Government support.
Yeah, government attitudes more than just support. I believe, and I've believed for a long time, that we need a carbon tax. We need to monetize our consumption of resources that are non-replenishable. And if we did that and put a fair value on carbon, that would provide huge incentive to, pretty quickly make far more energy efficient automobile fleets, far better insulated houses. It would just go incredibly far to bring about the kind of change we want. Even with development patterns, it would do more to eliminate sprawl. Obviously, it's a long-term process, but more to eliminate sprawl than anything else. Someone asked me, doing an article a number of years ago, if there was one thing I could do to encourage smart growth or the new urbanist movement. I said it would be make gasoline $10 a gallon. Overnight there would be tremendous motivation to create communities where you didn't have to hop in your car to get a loaf of bread. Anyway, great conversations. Wish we could continue it, but thank you.
Just a final thing, thank you all for coming, and as well as there are books of Alex's here for sale for $20. I think they're all signed.
No, he'll sign them
Alex will sign
for
them.
you.
So they're here. The proceeds, thanks to BuildingGreen, will go to sale.